Hey, this is Mo Lunsford at Union Grove Lumber Studios.
And this is the Shed Geek. We want to welcome you to today's episode. Okay, welcome back to another episode of the Shed Geek podcast. In this bitter, nasty, rainy, snowy, cold.
Yes, this is the time of year I'm not a fan of Pennsylvania.
Well, who would have known we would be going to Pennsylvania in January? You just can't beat that. We try to save Pennsylvania for the summertime where there's less mosquitoes and cooler air, and we're chasing the better weather. Today we lost the battle, but that's okay because we're with good company. A lot of great interviews lined out this week, including today's guest, Willy. Do you just want to introduce yourself, the name of your company, a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. So most people know me as Willy Bricker. My name's actually Wyland, but everybody calls me Willy. That started back in school. But I am owner of North Mountain Structures here in South Central Pennsylvania, along with my partner, Keele Heckman, which he's not here today. He's on a 6-week mission trip with his family right now. But I started working here for the company in 2010, just a 17-year-old guy working just the guy in the shop. So worked in the shop for quite a few years, and then worked my way up to like shop manager. And then in 2020 is when I moved into the office. And then in 2022, my partner and I purchased the business from my uncle, who started it back in 2004, I believe. So been doing sheds here for a long time. So it's a ton of fun. I love it. So whenever I first started in the shop as just a laborer, it was a job. But now I love it. The whole...
Now you don't work. Is that what you're telling me?
Exactly.
I bet that's what the guys in the shop say.
That's what they say, exactly. But I do too. I love my job. I love coming to work every day.
Yeah. So, no, that's good.
Yeah, I'm a dad, a husband. I mean, the list of who I am could go forever. It's a huge blessing and a lot of responsibility God gave to me.
A lot of hats. A lot of times
that's for sure.
You wear a lot of hats. I talked about a lot of hats recently whenever you're growing up and kind of trying to find... I don't know. I still think that for men, we spend a lot of time trying to find purpose sort of in what we do. And there's a large part of our identity that's kind of made up in that purpose. And so like, that's where our job becomes very important to us. That like you can go into work and just do a job, or you can have a career. You can have something that you're ambitious about, something that you look forward to doing, or you can just bring in a paycheck. Right. And I think that a lot of guys like myself tend to find a lot of identity of ourselves in also what we do. And it becomes very important for us. So like, what's the coming in at 17, your uncle owns the shed business. You grew up, you're here in Chambersburg.
Yes.
And I'm assuming that you grew up in this area.
Born and raised in Chambersburg. Yep,
okay.
Yep, that's all I know. Other than I did live for 2 years in Kentucky whenever I was 15 and 16. Lived with my uncle and aunt there for a while, helping him with his door and window business.
Okay.
And was good friends with everybody down there in Burkesville, Kentucky. So Chad Ginrich, he was on the show a while ago.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
Shout out to Chad. He's a good guy. He's
really good guy.
Yeah. So other than living in Kentucky for a little bit, Chambersburg is really all I know. But then my wife's from Iowa, so I did get out of state a little bit there.
The flatland.
The flatland, exactly.
Yeah.
You can see a dog run away for 2 days and stand on a 5-gallon bucket, see it for another day. Yep.
What's the deal in Iowa with the 159th Street way out in the middle of the country, or 163rd Street? Like, I don't understand the way, like we were driving through there and I love it. It's actually kind of like peaceful, although there's not a whole lot to be seen.
There's
like
not
it's
a lot
peaceful.
of corn and beans. It's about all it is.
Yeah. Just like central Illinois pretty much. But, yeah, I don't know. I just remember seeing like, we were out in the country and we were like 132nd Street. And I was like, what? I'm not sure what's going on
middle
here.
of nowhere. Yeah. Everything's laid out in square block grids where my wife's family's from. They're in the Des Moines area.
Okay.
And a little west of Des Moines, a little town called Dallas Center.
Okay.
But everything's northwest, east, and south out there. Like if you're talking to my father-in-law, he goes, get something out of the south end of the shed. Well, I'm from Pennsylvania. I have no clue which side of the south end of the shed is.
I see. Yeah. Well, we liked it. It was nice out there. got to visit some of our good friends, Nick Yost and the guys up there at IFAB. And there's some other guys that come from there, Gary Bontrager, and just people that names that you accumulate in the industry. And been to Des Moines before. It's actually a nice little downtown area. I like that. But
it is.
Yeah, it's always a fun time in Pennsylvania. I prefer it in the summer.
I do too. But it's where I live. So thankfully, I live right here on the property as well, where the shop's at. So I walk to work. I like to tell people, like, I'd love to buy a Tesla someday, but I can't even afford a little beater because I walk to work. Or I can't justify a little beater even because I just walk to work. I don't need a car.
Yeah. You're going to have to get one of those. Well, you start with like a golf cart. So there's an electric car for you.
There you go.
You got to start somewhere.
Yeah.
And then you can just ride around. And then your employees are really going to think you're taking it easy, right?
They would, yeah. And the other thing is I'd have to compete with it with my nephew. So
okay.
So my wife and I have 5 kids, and our 6th one is due next week. So
congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, it's exciting. But
that's awesome.
This will be our first biological child. So
okay.
Our oldest 2 are my niece and nephew. They came to live with us about 4 years ago. Their family situation didn't work out, and so they came to live with us. So he's 11, and so he'd be who I'd be competing with the golf cart.
Okay.
But 11, my nephew's 8, and then we adopted our little girl and through foster care a year ago now. Actually, a little over a year ago in December. She's 4, and then we have 2 other little girls that are still in the foster system. That's 3 and 1.
Okay.
So it's a full-time job being a dad. It's great. So just like what you're saying, like all the many hats, like being a business owner is great and fun. I love it, but you got to remember why you're doing this. It's for my family. Like I heard someone say that the only people in 20 years that remember you worked late are going to be your children. Yeah. So I got to remember that. Like the reason I'm here is for my family, but not just that. It's also for the guys working here. Like being a business owner and being a leader, it's like you had said, part of a man's identity is finding purpose for life. But it's part of mine is also making sure I'm giving purpose to the guys working in the shop as well. Like it's a whole lot more than just being a boss or an owner or a salesman.
A leader.
A leader, exactly. Yeah. It's providing that identification for the guys working here, making sure they're not just clocking in and can't wait to clock out. Like
there's a difference in a boss and a leader. Mm-hmm. You know, I think I've had several bosses and I've worked for several leaders that were my boss. Mm-hmm. And I grew the most under leadership, right? Like definitely, well, I mean, you can only imagine, not a fan of micromanagement. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? That's a struggle for me because I seek independence. I love independence. I prefer that. So like being an employee, you have your own ideas. Mm-hmm. Right. And you have to you have to fall under the leadership of that in which you're serving at the time. Right. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure if I'm saying that in a way that comes across right, but you have to be sort of subservient in some ways to serve and be like, hey, I can be a good employee in this situation. But then there comes a time where like the bands start to bust, or you start to go, wait a minute, I think there's other ways to do this, or I think there's better ways, or I think there's ways I can improve, and you attempt to. So, you know, and that's, I mean, is that not kind of the story of the shed industry? Why do the best people end up in the shed industry? Like you're literally like, you're exactly the guy. I'm like, hey man, I'd love to hang out with those guys on Friday night. Like, you know what you're getting. You don't wonder. Like, I mean, this guy's got, 5 kids, took in his nephew.
You might not want to hang out with me Friday night.
No, are you working?
No, a lot of noise, a lot of kids. It's
okay.
It's great chaos.
It's beautiful. It's like our pastor said. He said, talking about kids in church, and he said, "Man, what a beautiful sound!" Like so many pastors get upset and they're like, "Oh, I wish they'd, quieten their kids down and sit down." And he said, "It's just a beautiful sound to me to hear kids hollering in the church, or, be, you know what I mean? Yeah. Active, being kids, like kids are."
I mean, hey, that's the future of anything. I mean, the future church, the future business. I mean, it all starts out with kids. Yeah.
We're reaping what we sow, not necessarily in a bad way. We had 2 children. We had a girl and a boy, and we stopped, and we kind of I know I was scared financially that, growing up, what I would consider poor, and I think by most any other standard, it would be considered poor as well. Maybe not as bad as my dad did, you know, but then my son's not going to have it as bad as I did. Right. And hopefully his kids don't have it as bad as he. So you're constantly looking for, you know, to better those behind you. But I kind of feel like we've just landed upon a gold mine with, you know, having a grandbaby due here in March and Troy home from school, and he's traveling with us.
Yeah, that's great. More time with family. You can't beat that.
Yeah, it's like paying for 9 innings of baseball and you get 2 extra innings because they're tied or something, you know. It's nice to spend the time with him now and go down the road and just chat and certainly look forward to being his friend and not just his parent at all times. At IFAB LLC, our passion is welding, fabricating, and design. That's why in 2015, we began to commercially market our product to the shed, portable building, and mini barn industry. Our product is primarily used to build trusses. Our truss saw system cuts boards in one motion, and our truss press system installs and presses the gusset plates to a finished truss. We custom fabricate jigs that assure perfectly symmetrical truss setup without error. We also have other products designed to help your shed builder increase quality, efficiency, and save money. Our precision door tape will build your custom doors square every time and easily adjust to build any door. For products like these or other custom fabrication services for your barn shop, visit ifabllc.com or call 563-422-7496 or simply email us at ifabllc@gmail.com. So tell me about the shed industry, man. Like, what is it that has surprised you from 17-year-old Willie coming in to help his uncle to where you are now running the company?
Yeah. Well, one thing that I remember, and it still happens, is whenever I got into the shed industry, everyone's like, well, won't everybody have a shed soon? I mean, you can't just keep building these things. I mean, my uncle was building sheds for quite a few years before I even started. And I remember I got into the business and was working here, and my grandparents would go like, man, doesn't everybody have a shed? I mean, what's going on with this? But I was like, hey, they keep buying them. Sales have been increasing ever since 2010. So it's been phenomenal. Like, really, it's just meeting new people. So whenever I got into the hire, just working in the shop, that's all it was. It was just a job. I was here because I needed a job. I wasn't passionate about the shed industry. I didn't even know there was a shed industry. Yeah. But like, I remember working in the shop, like, okay, why am I here? Like, it's just the next shed. But then whenever I moved into the office, it's like, this is why I'm here. Like, I'm actually solving a problem for this customer. Like, they have a problem and I can help them. It's not just clock in, clock out, clock in, nail the 2x4s together, clock out. Like, I'm doing so much more than selling 2x4s with a shingle on top. I'm actually creating space. I'm solving a problem. Like, so I guess you say what surprises me the most. It's really how much I love the industry, how big the industry is, going from not even knowing it was an industry to like, man, there's a lot of people in this industry.
A lot.
Yeah. And then the Pennsylvania Shed Haulers Bash. I went there, and I believe that was your first podcast you're doing there. And
we had a couple recorded,
okay,
and then we had a few recorded, and then we did like 4 or 5 of them there.
Okay, yeah. So I that was the first time I saw you. I saw you guys sitting around with mics and headphones. I was like, what are they doing? Exactly, yeah. And so I little research, and I found your podcast. I was like, man, this is great. Like, you're the connector, connecting all these pieces. And so it's like, I'm not alone. And so that was a big thing as well. Like, okay, I'm alone. I'm managing this business now, and who else is out there other than our competition? Like, what else is out there? And then you came along the podcast, like, wow, this place is huge. And then that opened up a whole bunch of other opportunities into other facets of the business as far as suppliers and the Joey lift and all those other stuff. It just exploded my world. So that's probably the coolest thing that I would say as far as the whole shed industry, just knowing how big it is.
I would agree. We were driving through Chambersburg, and I was like, Troy, look up the population here in Chambersburg, because we was kind of talking about it over lunch. Yep. So the way here, 22,000, by the way. So
okay.
Just so you know.
Good to know. I've been here my whole life and didn't even know it.
I always compare it to like where we are closest. So like, I think the county over McCracken County, which is where Paducah, Kentucky is located, it's like 120,000, but Paducah's only like 26. So it's about the same size.
Similar to that,
so I like to try to compare it sort of like where we are. And I think to myself, like, well, how many shed lots are there? Well, let's see, in Paducah, there's only like 10 or 13 or something like that. I don't know what it is, but there's tons of guys selling sheds there. And I can really remember when there was just like maybe 2. Our little town of Metropolis had 3. Now they have none. It's just like 6,500 people. So like,
I guess everybody does have a shed now.
Yeah, I think, well, and I wrote down a few things. So a lot of times that's what I'll do when I'm interviewing is I'll try to write down a few topics that really like stand out. And I'm like, man, there's some meat there that we need to address. Saturation, is it going to happen? Everybody talks about the bubble popping, but you were kind of talking about being a young guy, working with your uncle, moving into the opportunity to own your own company, and now seeing the maturity and growth in that company. Mm-hmm. And like, we were even kind of talking about that over lunch, like watching and seeing where you want to go.
Yeah.
How you want to do that, like gaining opinions from people, to be able to do that. I don't know. I don't know when we hit a point of saturation. I see sheds everywhere all the time now. And it is, to your point, it feels like a huge industry. It's like the biggest small industry ever because everybody's connected. Then at the same time, like, I don't know, I'm seeing Facebook posts from Brandon Suarez in Salt Lake and then turn around and seeing, I don't know, something happening in Florida, Alabama, seeing something that you're doing here in Pennsylvania. And it's like, man, I know all those people, but at the same time, like, there's a lot of sheds out there. There
is a phenomenal amount. Yeah. And so, whenever you think about that, you've got 13 shed lots in one town. Whereas here, it feels like, there's 3, 4, or 5 of them around here. It's like, man, we're getting too tight. But compared to that, no, not really. So there's so far there's been room for all. I'm great friends with our competition, talk to them fairly regularly. So
that's awesome. Well, that's a good thing. And like me and Sam Byler were kind of talking recently from the hauler perspective of like what they do and how they try and connect. And we were kind of talking about the excitement of like watching sort of some of the salespeople come together in a way that they can pay homage and respect to the fact that we are competitors, which is not a bad thing. I think it's got a little bit of a bad rep because so many people's been talking about, collaboration, me included. Like, it's a great thing. It is because it's sort of like stems from fellow love of your brother, right? Like you're sort of like, you're on this task to create this really nice, awesome business that's very helpful to people with a product that also allows you to, feed your family and several other families through employment. But then there's also this like other purpose, a grander purpose in life to like, treat others as though you were to be treated and to live under biblical rule, right? Mm-hmm. Like, what we know to be true.
Sure. And
like try and live that out in your walk, in your daily walk.
So just like you were saying, collaborate here, but like, why are we in business? We're here to solve problems. We're here to serve people. And if they can be served by someone else, so be it.
Yeah.
But the whole thing of collaboration is it's like trying to understand like what that is or what that means in the shed industry. It might be a little easier explained in the hauler side versus the sales side, but I mean, I had a great story here happen in the last year of collaborating with our competitor. Was we had a new shed lot come in town, and the first week or two he was there, I stopped in one Saturday just to talk to him and just like meet him. Was like, hey, this is who I am. Just curious who you are. Hey, we want to be friends. We're not enemies here. Just curious where he's coming from, who he is. Just like that way, I'm not beating around the bush and hearing it through the grapevine. So I talked to him, introduced myself, and the funny thing was while I was there, our other competitor drove past and he messaged me and goes, hey, what are you talking to the enemy for?
What are you doing, man?
Obviously, as a joke,
are you guys plotting against me? What's going on here?
It was great, but I mean, obviously, as a joke, of course, we're great friends, and more than just in the shed industry. But then after a while, a couple weeks go past, I stopped in there and talked to the guy a couple more times. We became friends, other than just in the shed industry. Yep. And he gave me a call one day and he goes, hey, I got a guy looking for a shed, but my price is higher than anybody else's price around here, and I'd rather him buy from you than anybody else. was like, well, hey, send him over, see if I can help. And I ended up selling a shed to that guy who had no clue that we were even here in town. He was just looking for a shed, stopped in at our competitor's lot. The competitor couldn't help him out, so he sent him to us, and we made a sale. So it's like brilliant. Like that's what stopping in and talking to him, building that relationship was about. Like he's helping us out, I'm there to help him. Like we can help each other out. And then after a couple months, that guy, he's no longer the salesman there at that sales lot. But he gave me a call last week and said, hey, I'm running a little handyman contractor business, and I got contacted from a company that needs 20 or 30 little cabins to finish out. I was wondering if you could help me out with it.
Wow.
I was like, man, it just comes full circle because I wasn't there trying to get business or steal his business. I was there just as a friend. Like, hey, who are you? What's it about? This is who I am. And it turns around like, hey, we can help each other out here. So
that soft approach changed things. Like I said, the industry won. That's the comment that came to mind when you were talking. The industry won in that situation because, it can be tough to extend the olive branch to somebody who is across the aisle and you're competing with. But we mentioned competition, and we talk so often about collaboration and how good it is, and I agree. But there's value in competition in that it makes us better. Mm-hmm. It keeps us accountable. It doesn't let us lax. So, I mean, there's a lot of times whenever you see a competitor doing something and you think to yourself, I know I have several times, man, that was really good. Mm-hmm. That's really smart. And maybe that sets the standard for all of us moving forward because they've done something that really mattered.
And if we're really doing it for the customer, we'll all come up with better ways to serve.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, you're always going to come back with a better opportunity. And that's really with the customers being educated holds tremendous value for them, right? Mm-hmm. Because then they're able to come to you and they're able to ask you and then you're able to perform your duty as a shed sales professional to be like, well, let's get to the bottom of what this customer is wanting. Are they really wanting a high quality shed that matches everything in their house because there's a HOA stipulation or something along those lines? Or, is this more traditional storage? I need something quick, fast, easy, something to protect my mower. So I'm more of a price point shopper, but not to suggest that quality is completely unimportant, but maybe not, I don't need all the bells and whistles, so to speak. So gives you the opportunity. And a lot of manufacturers go into those different niches, don't they? They're like, hey, we kind of identify ourselves as maybe not the cheapest, but also the best quality. And someone over here says, well, we move bulk. We move a lot of product. That's really important to us. We talked about saturation, but would you say, and I think I know the answer to this, but you said one of the things that you found for yourself was sort of a passion in the sales world. Like you talked to me about the business side exciting you. Mm-hmm. It's something cool about going out there and building the jigs and understanding the process of a professional shed builder day in and day out. But what is it about the sales process and the business side that kind of grabbed you?
Sure.
Managing your rent-to-own contracts just got easier with RTOSmart. Designed by leaders in the rent-to-own storage industry, RTOSmart was handcrafted to enable you with the tools needed to manage your own contracts your way without using a third-party rent-to-own company. RTOSmart is your one-stop shop, allowing you to generate contracts and manage customer accounts from start to finish while maintaining simplicity and flexibility. Call us today at 316-618-9396 or visit our website at rtosmart.com to schedule a live demo and discover why RTOSmart may be right for your business.
So they came in or they called me because they have a problem. Mm-hmm. And the nearest thing they can figure out is they need a shed. Well, that's really broad. And I love talking with them and helping customers through, okay, you need a shed, but what do you need a shed for? And then solving their problems, figuring out what their problem is. Sometimes customers don't even know what their problem is, or they have no clue what they want or what's best. And then that's even more fun because I can walk them through what I think is best. And then they look at me as like a professional in the field. They would trust me and trust what I'm looking for. But it's not only me just pushing product on them. It's me figuring out the problem and then offering this solution for that problem so that they can continue doing whatever they're needing. So it's not you need this, this, and this. It's like, hey, you could use this so that A, B, and C. I mean, it's great. I mean, you walk into your garage and you smell gas because you've got gas cans and lawnmowers in there. Well, you need more ventilation. We offer the soffit vent and the ridge vent and the gable vent. It gets air moving. So it's not like, yeah, we need vents. It's like, no, we don't want to smell gas.
Have you seen my buddies down there at Mobino Solar Solution? I don't know if you saw his episode.
Yep, I did.
The Zula. I don't know. I was like, man, like me and him's been talking recently, and I'm like, I just really feel like it's a great product when you think of like ventilation.
So and then
free commercial.
That. Yeah, exactly. But the thing is, whenever you're selling that, you're not selling a fan. Nobody wants to buy a fan. But they don't want the musty shed. They don't want their totes full of Christmas decorations smelling like gas. They don't. Yeah. You're buying the experience. You're selling the solution to a problem. You're not selling a fan. And that's the part that I love. Like, I'm not selling 2x4s. Nobody wants to buy 2x4s. They've got enough problems in their house with 2x4s. Like, they want a solution to a problem. They want to get their $80,000 SUV in the garage.
Yeah.
Because they're going to lose the value if it's out in a hailstorm. Yep. Well, they can't fit it in the garage because it's full of stuff that should go in a shed. Yeah. So I'm not selling them a shed. I'm solving a problem by getting their $80,000 SUV in the garage. So it's so we kind of talked about even the P&L side, like focusing on things like that and like truly becoming a bit of a business expert, at least in your small area. Right. And how that's exciting. It is.
And like, how it can become exciting as you begin to develop a taste for it.
Yeah. Knowing your numbers, knowing like what you're buying lumber for, what it costs to build the shed, what it costs to sell the shed, and then what you can sell the shed for. Like knowing that it's a ton of fun. I love digging into it. So like we said before, like there's a lot of hats to wear with owning a business and being in leadership to where I'm the only salesman here. So that's what I do from 8 to 5. So the business side of it's what I do from early in the morning till 8. So I clock out at 5. I'm usually home by 5:30. So it's 5:30. I don't work late. Occasionally I do if I have to, but most times I'm here. Like if it's before our quarterly meetings or if it's annual meetings, I'm here at 3 o'clock every morning for all week long and getting that business side done, and then still doing the sales side at 8. So it's juggling and learning how to manage that time. Like I've started buying sticky notes in cases by the case. So I have sticky notes everywhere. And then at the end of every day, look at all the sticky notes and figure out which ones I got to get done before the end of the day. If my desk is clean of sticky notes, I got everything done.
The original CRM system.
That's right.
Sticky notes. Yeah. I still use them too, even though I use programs and automation and things like that. Yeah. Every now and then, just kind of staying at the top of your mind there. The sticky note, like I gotta call this guy back. This is a must do today, yes, or those situations. And always try to take the approach that I'm going to call you back by the end of the day, no matter what. Always, initially, I even set that as my voicemail for the longest time. If you leave me a voicemail, you will receive a call by the end of the day.
Sure.
And I try to put that pressure on myself to make sure I'm performing. I spend a lot of time on the phone because, believe it or not, I'm a talker. So it just lends itself to that. Let's get some meat on the bone here for the audience who listen. And I'm going to address your conversation about connecting and being a connector. We're going to come back to that. But to get some meat on the bone, like what are some things that's helped you in sales? What are some things that have disappointed you? Maybe we don't have to talk too specific, but what are some things that you were like, wow, that looked different than what I thought?
Mm-hmm. Sure. So like my sales, like I said, I moved in the office in 2020, and that's right when COVID hit. So January of 2020, January, February, March was kind of before COVID hit, and it was whenever it was just starting, and everybody was like, what's going to happen? And we've had several customers like call in and cancel their order because they're going to wait and see what happens. Right. Or they might get laid off. And it looked pretty scary there for a little bit. But then after the ball started rolling, it's like the orders just came flooding in. And to where I was an order taker. I wasn't a salesman. I wasn't... Yeah. I didn't really have to craft or learn what I was doing. I just did it. I just took the orders. I knew how to do that. And like as 2020 happened, 2021 was really good. 2022 last year, I started realizing like, hey, like, what can I do to get better at this? It's easy to spend money on a tool or something for the shop where you spend an X amount of money and you have something to see that, okay, you spent $10,000, now you have a Joey. You've got something to hold. Okay, you spent X amount of money, now you have a truck, now you have a trailer, now you have a mule, you have something. Whereas I started looking into sales training. Like, how can I be better at sales? How can I be better at communicating? How can I be better at whatever I'm doing? And you got to spend some money. But if I spend money, I don't have anything to show for it unless I learn it. So if I don't learn it, that's putting a lot of pressure on me. So that whole thing, I did spend a little bit of money in some training, just communication and learning mainly how to help people and help solve problems, not necessarily product knowledge. I have that. I've been building these sheds since I was 17.
Right.
So, yeah, I guess
what wins? Maybe I need to write that down. Answer it if you want to, or we'll come back to it. What wins?
What wins?
Product knowledge or sales approach and like coaching, the coaching you receive versus like your product knowledge.
Sure. I think they go hand in hand.
Okay.
So we have several dealers that I'm also helping them out as well. So if they'd have a question, they'd call me. And we had a new dealer start, and he didn't have any product knowledge. And that's when I realized it is important. Mm-hmm. Like it's very important, because if someone comes to you as the expert and you don't know, that's pretty scary. Like I wouldn't want to buy from somebody who didn't know anything about what they knew. So it is very important. But I think knowing how to communicate to the customer in a way that you're for them. You're not out to get another sale. You're out to help them, and whatever that means. So I think they go hand in hand. I mean, you can't have one without the other, I don't think.
I agree. I think it's easy to undermine product knowledge as well, too, whenever it's a new employee, whenever it's a new dealer. Or if you're someone who's been working in sheds for a long time, a band board makes perfect sense to you what it is. But imagine being in the position of a salesperson, not knowing what the band board is and how important is it? Oh, I don't know. Maybe you're not going to need to have that knowledge in 50 customers. But maybe one person's going to ask you, I notice you guys don't pay the band board. Will you do that, or is that included? And then you have to go, well, what's the band board?
Right.
Have you ever had a customer ask you about how to supply power to their shed? Do you sell electrical kits as an upsell for your sheds currently? Do you want an easy, no-hassle option to offer for your customers when they want to add electric to their sheds? Check out EcoEthics Solar. EcoEthics Solar is looking for shed manufacturers and shed dealers who want to be able to provide a solar electric option to their line of sheds. With EcoEthics Solar, you can purchase the SunSaver, a solar product specifically designed with the shed owner in mind. Want to offer a larger product that can operate a full tiny home? At EcoEthics Solar, they have the necessary product, training, and capacity to meet your customers' needs. Installation for the SunSaver is simple and takes just 45 minutes. You can even install it right there on your sales lot or at the manufacturing facility. EcoEthics Solar even provides hands-on in-person training if necessary. Plus, they will provide you with video tutorials and handouts with specific installation instructions that keeps adding a solar-powered electrical system to your shed fast and simple. In many cases, the end user can even perform the installation once the shed is delivered to their home. If you are interested in purchasing a unit for display and then drop shipping your orders, or even ordering multiple units to have available as you build, contact my friends at EcoEthics Solar at 336-250-1284 or email sales@ecoethicsolar.com.
And that's where product knowledge is paramount. Like you need to know what you're selling, but at the same time, like I said before, what are you selling? Are you selling 2x4s? You're selling the experience. So you got to know how to figure out what they want to buy and then sell that. And if it looks like a shed, that's great. Just like you mentioned on the podcast before about Apple computers, you just so happen to sell Apple computers. And so that's the same way with me. Like I want to solve people's problems. It just so happened I'm in the shed business. Like if your problem is XYZ, if I can solve that with the shed, I will. If you need something else, I'm for sure going to give you a referral to someone else. Like I've got a whole drawer full of business cards and numbers of other things like roofers and guys that build decks and gutters and everything else that I can't supply, but my customer needs. So,
and I pulled that from Simon Sinek to give credit where it's due. You know, he talked about that, and he talks about how Apple just happened to, they were going to be the best at what they do. What they do wasn't as important.
Right.
They could have been building refrigerators. They just happened to be in computers. They could have been building motorcycles. That just happened to be Harley Davidson. They just happened to find a way to market the best product and find out all those, right? Like Apple figured it out on computers. Harley Davidson figured it out on, Kleenex figured it out on tissues. Weed Eater.
Yeah.
Well, arguably they didn't figure it out because I'm a Echo fan whenever it comes to weed eaters, but trimmers.
Sure.
But weed eater, branding. There's a whole conversation about branding that needs to happen there. Kleenex, Cokes, weed eaters. I mean, I always think that's important.
And that whole side of the business, like branding and knowing how to market and advertise and what all that is, like that's something like I want to learn more of. Like I'm super hungry to learn, okay, so what is good branding? What is good marketing? How can I do it? In some ways I don't have the time of day to figure it all out, but I want to. I mean, right now I'm wearing a lot of hats, so that's one of my early morning hats. The customer hats usually come during the day. So, but like, what is good? Okay, so we have a marketing company, we have a website, we have all that, and I know what our analytics are, but what is good?
Yeah.
Who do you compare it with? How do you compare it with? And so if you're going to be the best at whatever you'd be, and you just so happen to be in the shed industry, and you want to be the best in the shed industry, I don't want to look at our competitors and say, what are they doing? I'm going to do that. I mean, you'll never get...
Preach, brother, preach.
You'll never get ahead that way. You got to look, okay, what am I doing and how can I better this? And to where myself is my own competition. Like we sit down with our financial guy every year and have projections. Like I list out reasonable, realistic projections, but then my goal is always to beat it. Like I want to do better than what my projections are. Same thing with marketing. Like I want to be the best there is. And so what is that? Who can I compare it to? What do I compare it to? And
you're hungry. It shows up in your conversation, in your questions, like over lunch, I mean, and I'm one to like just kind of freely talk about what I do know, and then quick to be like, I don't know it all. You know what I mean? Like sure. I'm quick to be like, oh, hey, for me, it's about being the connector. What you said earlier, and I appreciate your kind words on that. I wanted to kind of come back to that and just say, connectivity is really, it's networking, and I would say it's not just communication, but it's comprehension. I don't know if you've ever heard the quote that I used to think that communication was the key, because we always hear communication is the key, but really comprehension's the key. Because we can communicate something, but it doesn't mean it's comprehensive. It doesn't mean it's understood, and that communication actually happened. Just because you spoke doesn't mean communication happened. The longest distance in history is from my heart to my mouth to your ears to your heart. I'll say that again. The longest distance in history is from my heart to my mouth to your ears to your heart, and vice versa. Because there's so many things that get in the way.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes I'm not even sure how to say what I want, what I'm feeling. Yeah. Much less say it in a way that makes sense to you.
Exactly. Yeah. How do I say it in a way that is effective communication and is comprehended? So I find that, in areas I've jumped into, not just in the podcasting, but even in the marketing and the RTO side, is like, how do I effectively educate? So I've kind of found this sort of like passion for education, which is hilarious, Willie, given my like primary school days. You'd be like, there's no way this guy cares anything about education, which really I didn't, and kind of grew up in a broken home, you know what I mean? Was kind of born into that. And then it became our reality. And then, school and education just wasn't a big thing. Hard work was. That's because we were, Reagan Democrats and, Blue Dogs, and everybody was like, you're gonna have to work hard. And if you outwork everybody, you're going to win. There's another saying, and I love quotes. I try to keep a whole storage room full of them in my head because of that. That says, hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work. And I love that, because I'm like, yeah, there's a lot of truth to that, because talent is freely given, but you're making a choice when you work hard, making a choice when you grind and hustle. And maybe those are pop culture words that don't fit here perfectly, but I mean, you can outwork a talented person and be successful as the talent didn't show up.
Sure. And it's all about making that choice. Okay, so I am going to be the best that I can.
Yes.
And the whole point of whenever I came into the office, into the managing of the business, and then eventually purchased the business with my partner, like now, like I have to show up for the guys.
Absolutely.
Like I don't have a choice not to.
Yep.
Like I have to be there. But what makes it fun is I want to be there. Like, I love my job.
Yes.
I love doing this. Like, I want to keep doing it. And I say that, of course, there's being in management and owning a business, there's always going to be the stress level. I mean, we're always going to be praying for work for the guys. We're always going to be praying for guys for the work. I mean, there's always that side of it, managing people, managing customers, and taking care of everybody's problems, like just solving problems. Yeah. But yet at the same time, like, that's what I was created for. That's what we were created for, is to solve problems, serve people. And I love doing that.
You talked about the connectivity. I don't know if I've mentioned it on here. I think I have. But like, I remember going from lot to lot, and I remember one guy telling me one time in Springfield, Illinois, I was on a phone call with him, and he said, "Where else can I get more information? You seem like a guy who's like really big on information, and sometimes you feel like alone by yourself and on an island when you're a dealer, because you don't call up these other dealers because, oh no, it's your competition, and they're not going to take kind to me, like coming over and talking to them." And in some businesses, in some companies, they're even encouraged not to. Right. So, he's like, man, I actually, I just want to learn more without trying to like infiltrate their space, or of course I always want to win, but how can I do it respectfully? And he was like, I just really wish people would put more information out there. It's like people, and I was like, man, that's, all these things were coming together where, this podcast was being created, right? Mm-hmm. That was the opportunity for it. It's because I'm listening, and I'm like, I'm not just talking on a podcast, on a microphone, I'm actually listening. And the listening manifest into the opportunity to have the conversation. And there's just, I mean, I'll even mention, there's compliments I've gotten from people that I'm like, they don't even know how much it means to me. They were like, man, you're talking about, this is the guy that I met that 2 years ago or 3 years ago, I had no idea you had that much like either talent inside of you or something waiting to come out. It's nice to get the attaboys and the pats on the back, all glory to God, because without God, I couldn't stand up and walk out of this room without his permission. Right. So, it's not me soaking up the glory. But it's like, man, how cool that like these people recognize that. And they're like, I wouldn't even let you in the door 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. And so there's like this interpersonal connectivity that, you know what I mean? And it's just amazing. And it opens up doors that no man can shut.
Exactly.
In like
I was just going to mention
business.
that, like opening up doors, opening up opportunities.
Yeah.
I'm not a very avid reader. I'm a high school dropout. Never finished high school.
Oh man, I was so close. I don't know how I got through. I don't.
But I could probably count on one hand how many books I've finished since I got out of school. Yeah. But on your podcast, you said leaders are readers. I was like, oh man.
I stole that too. Just so you know, I'm not taking credit for any of it. I stole it from one of my favorite podcasters.
So and then also I have a friend, our competition, he encouraged me to recommend a couple books to me, and so I started.
I think
listening.
I recommended one to you. Yeah. just today.
You did, yep. So I got Audible, and I got a whole library of books now. So I'm not reading them. I'm a terrible reader. I can't. Just the comprehension's not there, but listening is great. So listening to your podcast is a good thing. But the one book I listened to was The Go-Giver. Mm-hmm. And great book. It was the first book I actually listened to it, and I was like, man, that's good. So I ordered the hard copy and read the whole way through the hard copy. So, and it's a super simple book, but it resonated with me. It's like, oh man, I can relate to that. Like, it's not a self-help book. It's a story.
Yep.
And there's connectors, and there's just people that are out to serve people. And the opportunities that come from that are huge. And I've seen that just in our small little business here, way back off the road. But if I'm here serving people, it comes full circle.
There's a saying that you have to set boundaries, because if you're a giver, because the takers don't have boundaries. Mm. And I thought that was really important. A go-giver, first time I actually ever heard of that was Richard Miller. Richard Miller, he might have gave me that book. I'm not sure, but I definitely heard him mention it, and I ended up buying it and reading it. There's so many good ones. I could show you my Audible list right now. I think I've got like 8 credits on there, and I'm trying to get the right suggestions. And I've been mixing it up with like ones about the art of forgiveness, or maybe not. It's the art of moving on. It's not necessarily forgiveness based, but it's more like just moving on in business, moving on in life, and personal relationships, and a lot of these things. One's like a breathing exercise. I know I probably sound like a hippie, but whatever. I don't care. You guys can call me a hippie if you want to. Hello from the Shed Geek. Let's take a walk through My Shed 3D. With MyShed 3D, your company can simply add a 3D Builder button to its website. Once the customer clicks onto the 3D Builder button, they will enter some basic information to get started. Remember, this information is captured in your Leads tab, whether or not the customer designs a building. This is very valuable information that turns a cold call into a warm lead. Next, they begin the design of their shed by selecting a primary use, a style, and a size that best fits their need. MyShed 3D has multiple styles that are available and consistent with traditional and barn styles within the shed industry. However, if you offer a customized or non-traditional style, MyShed Solutions can build that design for future use. We can also save on some design features that make it easy to adjust without a major rebuild or added fees for design changes. For instance, want to offer a steeper roof pitch? Just navigate to the Settings tab. Then click the Building Models. Click Edit Building and just enter the new roof center height, and the design changes will reflect on this style option. This will save you thousands versus traditional design changes that need to build a whole new style to match your design. From here, simply choose the style, siding, and color. Then choose a trim and roofing style and color. Next, let's add a door. That was goofy. Next, let's add a door. It is required to add a door to move forward with the design, as at least one ingress-egress option is necessary. Then add some design changes for personalization. Maybe some windows, or a porch, or some interior shelving. Next, just click Save Design and the customer will receive an automated text with all the features of the design to the email address entered at the beginning. From here, they can edit the design, view the details of the design, pay now to order the shed, or click Rent to Own to complete the necessary steps to purchase a shed they designed with MyShed 3D. The design enters the admin panel as a quote, and this is where the manufacturer can update the progress of the design once a deposit is taken. MyShed, from design to delivery, we have you covered. So yeah, it's one of those things where like I watch documentaries for the educational purpose. I even read a lot of times fiction. I almost can't let my mind relax because I'm kind of looking for the education in it. What's to be learned from it, right? Like not just to entertain my mind, or like music. I mean, music has a purpose. You know, music changes like your mood a lot of times.
Yeah,
so for me to just be able to,
stuff.
So like all of that stems from James 1:5. You know, let any person who asks for knowledge, let him ask. It'll be given to him. And I'm paraphrasing. I'm probably messing that scripture up terribly, but I can remember specifically walking around my living room whenever I was younger, and I was like, I couldn't seem to succeed in career, couldn't seem to succeed in certain things of my life, and you know, that sent me into a spiral that I have kind of talked about. So March will be going into year 4. I haven't really discussed it too much on the podcast, but I've kind of talked about it some. Now that I've matured and grown past it, and like, you know what I mean? Like, God's really sustained that. And I remember opening up my Bible, because I remember a pastor, whenever I was younger, saying, if you don't know what to do, you can always just holler, Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. And the devil has to flee. And I was like, what, does that really work? You know what I mean? I was like,
Jesus can interpret it. What he knows our hearts better than we do.
Right. Yeah. I was like, what a cool hack for life. You know what I mean? To you know, but if he's looking up on your heart, like he did with David, right? He can see the heart. So like, I remember also a pastor saying, open up your Bible and just start reading. It doesn't matter what it is. Just start reading it, you know, because there's power in it. Yeah. It's a living word. It's powerful. So I just remember, and I opened it up one time and I turned it straight to James 1:5. And it said that, and I was like, man, that's my problem. Like, I'm not smart enough, so I need more knowledge, have more knowledge. So that's why I began to try to increase my knowledge, but also try to increase the knowledge. So like, and now I'm in this niche, right, of sheds. So I try to increase knowledge in this area that I'm in, because I don't feel like giving someone knowledge is a bad thing in any situation. A more knowledgeable person makes a better decision because they're able to weigh all the facts. So I'm not a big fan of like book burning. I'm not a big fan of like keeping education to a minimum. Like I want to tell people, and they're like, well, what if that doesn't benefit you? I'm like, if it doesn't benefit me, that's where the competitive side of me comes in to need to do better instead of just being like, I want to stay on this.
just like learning how to learn. Like that's like the conversation I had with my nephew. He's 11. He's in the middle of school. He's not a big fan of learning, but I said, it's not really what you're learning that's important. Of course, you probably won't ever use your history or whatever it is in your career when you get older, but you're going to need to learn how to learn. So if you can learn how to learn your history, learn how to learn your algebra, learn how to learn that, then you'll learn how to learn your career when you get older. It's all about learning how to learn.
That's a good word. I can talk to you on a 3-hour podcast. No joke.
What are we up to now?
So we started a little early and we had a little cut in there, but we're at 47 minutes.
Wow.
And it goes so easy. And we didn't even get in deep.
No.
We didn't even get in deep. We didn't get in deep on sales. We didn't get in on marketing. We didn't get on any other thing that we kind of discussed before. And maybe that's okay. Maybe that's just not the time for it. And
we'll have a part 2 sometime.
Right. Definitely. I'll tell you what, like you and other guests that I've had, I always say like I welcome new guests, but I always welcome old guests back too, because I mean, it's not like a one and done. You can always have a conversation that's beneficial. It's educational and entertaining. Sometimes I've had so many people say, man, I want to come back on because there's so many other things I could have said, or there's areas I've grown since we talked. And I'm like, man, yeah, let's go. Yeah. Let's do it. Like, let's do some Zoom calls or something. You know what absolutely. I mean? Like, we're not going to solve the world's problems, but communication is paramount. And I think it's very important for guys like yourself who said, I don't feel like I'm on an island by myself. I can tune in and listen to problems other people have or how they overcame them, you know, or just learning about shed history in general and how people are connected, not to do damage, but because it helps you to be like, oh man, that's the guy I should call, or this is a guy I should ask. You start to be surprised at like how many things people know that could be helpful and that are willing to help. They just don't know you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And one of the earlier podcasts you did it with Arlen Reel and his partner. I'm forgetting what his name
Mike
is.
Yoder.
Yes. Yep. After I listened to that podcast, it was right whenever my partner and I were thinking about buying this business together and going into partnership, and we're wondering how to do all that. And I was talking to different people, and after that podcast, I listened to it again. I think I listened to it a third time, and then I called Arlen up and talked to him about how he laid it all out. And like he had a lot of wisdom and insight.
Absolutely.
I mean, he didn't say, hey, this is what you should do. It's just, this is what we did, and this is what worked. This is what didn't work. And it was like invaluable. And you're the connector that connected us. It was great.
Great guys, man. And they're doing just wonderful things. They've been on twice. Him and Mike both are always so well-spoken and just good dudes. Their story was really cool, you know, and their story even kind of reminded me of me and Kyle when Kyle was still on the podcast. And like, we were sort of having like those friendship highs and lows and trying, you know, in business, but then also in personal life and trying to navigate those and figure it out. Those guys were very helpful in that. Arlen said, well, two things I want to point out. One, they're doing this really cool thing now. I don't know if you've noticed, but they opened up like a storefront where there's not like a shed lot, but it's like in a busy storefront. Almost, you know, I don't want to say that they're doing like Tough Shed because it's not fair to say that, because I don't think that's their motive, but you know, kind of being able to sell stuff in a traditional store.
Okay. Yeah. I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah. Well, I saw it on Facebook.
Okay.
So, and if I'm doing any, you know, injustice, please go check their page out because they'll be able to explain what they're doing better than I can explain what they're doing. Well, Arlen said something really cool last time that didn't make it on the podcast. And I'm gonna go ahead and say it here because I don't think that there's anything that get me in trouble here. We were kind of talking about like their Westwood cabins, and we were kind of talking about the process of getting modular. And I was like, man, what an opportunity out there for somebody to like take on companies who are ready to go modular, who are needing to find out what state certificates they need to get, what the process is going to look like from A to Z. And one of the guys that was there was like, man, what a great idea. You're right. We should do that. And Arlen said something that day, and he was like, well, hold on. We need to ask ourselves, is that who we are? Are we educators? Mm-hmm. And I was like, whoa, it hit me like a flume of smoke right in my face. And I was like, just because it's a good idea doesn't mean it's good for everybody.
Exactly.
It's like a pastor I used to know. He said, you can go broke on good deals just because it's a good deal. You can still spend all your money.
Yep.
You know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, knowing who you are and where you're going is important to know.
He immediately was like, well, wait a minute. We need to identify, is that who we are just because it's a good opportunity? Why would we go down that road? And I was like, I don't like you no more.
That's one thing where, like, for Caleb and I, Caleb's my business partner, like for him and I doing it together, like it's powerful. Like we balance each other out.
Absolutely.
So he's older than I am, a little bit more slower to jump into stuff. I'm a little bit younger. Like, hey, let's learn this. I want to learn more.
You
about
need that
this.
yin and yang almost, really.
Yeah, and he's added invaluable, just valuable insight into running the business.
Well, that has become Deanna and my son Troy for me, because the three of us all conversate and talk, and then so many others that we work with: Josh and Justin, Dylan, Jeff, Nick, Nathaniel. That has all kind of become part of the Shed Geek brand, working in some capacity completely or marginally within the Shed Geek brand. I mean, they're just really good guys to hang around now. And you've got like this whole team, this whole host of, 10 folks or so that you talk to in different capacities throughout the day, the week, the month, on a regular and semi-regular basis. And it's just, I don't know, kind of like found my team in some ways.
That's great.
Yeah.
And you're their leader, leading them to something bigger than themselves.
I would stray far away from calling myself a leader. I learned so much from those guys that there's so much credit. So like, I'm a good, I don't want to make a statement of arrogance here. I'm a good supervisor, but not because I value the power to advise. Not because it's a superiority thing. I've supervised a lot of people that talents go far beyond me. A perfect example might be Dylan. I never really supervised him. He didn't actually work for me. His brother did. And Nick did. And Brent did. Now that I think about it, a lot of people that I work with now have worked. But a lot of their talents go far beyond. What my talents are. To me, being a supervisor, my talent was always getting the best out of them. It didn't matter to me that I tell Dylan that all the time. I'm like, dude, you surprised me. Like, I never saw you going as far as you did. And I'm just happy to be part of your success and watch it go now. Yeah. And, I don't need attaboys or accolades or any of that stuff. It's just, there's some sense of joy and happiness in knowing that you're a little bit of the part of their process, that a little bit of their success is attached to you always in a small way.
You made a difference in someone's life.
That's what leadership probably should be. So maybe I should say leader, but I stutter at it because I don't like the idea of the accountability of leadership.
Sure.
I don't want to let anybody down. I don't want to let anybody down. That's my biggest fear in life, is I don't want to let anybody down. So like we'll move on. Let's get away from that. We beat that horse to death. We're at 54 minutes. I want to ask you a couple questions. I don't even know if I should do rapid fire, but I'll just do a couple questions, and then I'm going to let you turn the mic around and ask some questions. Yeah. You have been a big proponent of Shed Hub. I know that personally because you signed up, and then you also did a testimonial for them.
Yep.
I don't know if I wrote you the check yet, or if I've paid you to say this already or not.
It should be coming here.
It's in the mail.
I haven't got it yet. Yeah.
What's your true experience been with it?
It's been great. So I reached out, I think whenever you guys first started. I think I was one of the pioneer sign-uppers or whatever it was. But easy to sign up, super easy to add inventory. You guys have been super helpful. I think I worked with Heather there mostly. Super, super nice, just very knowledgeable, like super easy to add stuff. And it doesn't take long. Like, just upload the pictures, fill in a few blanks, it's done. And then the valuable part is it shows up. Like your SEO is spot on. So if someone's searching sheds near me, it's going to be there first page, or sheds near any town that we have. So we have a couple dealer lots, and so I signed up our dealer locations under Shed Hub as well. And then they got their brand builder website, they got their inventory on there. It's just easy. It's all in one place. So our dealers don't have internet, so they don't have access to upload their inventory. So I do all that for them. And so that's a huge thing for me. If it's easy and quick and I can upload all my dealer's inventory myself, it's super helpful, like that it's easy. It costs money, but it's not an expense. It's a return. Like I just had a customer this morning call me from it. So the return's there. People find it, and it's just a great way to get out there.
I find you got to use it. I think I told you the story. I've had two customer testimonials I'll do that always crack me up. One is a customer calling and said, I want to cancel the service. It's not working. And you go look at the account. And I don't own ShedHub, just to be clear. I help them because they advertise and they're an affiliate partner. So I'm going to do all I can to push people in that direction. I support those who support me. It's easy. They said, we weren't seeing anything. And you look at the account and it's like, you've not listed one single shed.
Sure.
You're not going to see any results at all.
Nobody's going to find you if you don't list any sheds.
So trying to figure out, then you're like, oh no, that person's going to talk to 10 people and tell them it didn't work. And you don't get to go to those 10 people and be like, they never listed anything. Right. Then we've had just the opposite. Went back when we were doing the free accounts, had somebody call up and say, man, this thing's working great. This is phenomenal. It's amazing. I was like, oh great. We need to get you onto a tiered, paid tier. And then you'll actually have more functionality and you can list more sheds so it can work better for you. And it's like, oh, no. I don't want to pay for anything. I was like, wait a minute.
Sure.
If you called and said it wasn't working and that's why you decided not to move forward, I think I would be sympathetic to that. But you're saying it's working and you still don't want to pay.
And you don't want to pay for it.
It confuses me. So
but the biggest thing was before I signed up, it's like, man, we don't even need to sign up. We have all of our inventory on our website.
Yeah.
All of our dealers listed on our website. We have all the inventory listed there. You can check out e-commerce. It's great platform that our marketing guys set up for us. But I'm all about, okay, let's find another way to reach people.
Yeah.
If this is another way to reach people, let's do
another tool in your toolbox.
Exactly.
That's all it is. Sam Byler always says that, another tool in your toolbox to use. Use them all. Use whatever works. That's the key. So love it. Free commercial there for ShedHub. Go sign up. They got the first 500 plan, $39 a month right now. So
way to go on the ad too. Yep.
Yeah. You got me there. Caught me off guard. I stepped way out of my comfort zone on that, but I've asked you plenty of questions. Turn the mic around and then we can get out of here. Any questions that you have for the Shed Geek, shed related, personally, podcast, anything that you can think of, full transparency and disclosure.
Yeah.
Any questions you would ask?
First question would be you're talking to a ton of different people in the industry, from sales to builders to suppliers, everything. So what's the pulse on the whole industry? Where do you think it's going to go in 2024? And there's a ton of dynamics that play into that, but in a nutshell, what do you think?
In a nutshell, there's a reason we jumped into marketing. It's full disclosure, right? So full disclosure is, I think people are struggling to see sales because now you probably heard me say this, we're in the old normal and not the new normal. And the old normal was you had to work for sales, or you eventually just kind of fell off, right? It might be a slow death, right? But those who embrace new ideas, whether it be technologies, opportunities, different things that, where people are seeing success, even those who say that we don't want to grow, to some extent, you have to grow. You at least have to maintain. You have to do what you did before to be successful, unless you've got some very unique business plan that allows you to slowly get out of this thing. And I think just embracing the new ideas and technologies, anything from configurators to PPC and meta ads, and understanding them, or at least working with someone who does, video, short form, long form. So we're trying to, we tried to create a whole marketing suite that could take on a lot and be able to have a lot of functionality, and then educate people on what that was. So there's a reason I jumped into that. So I think the pulse of it is, it's not COVID sales anymore. You got to work for them. So whether that's product knowledge, coaching, all of those things matter, but also kind of understanding how to reach a customer. There's a lot of value into having still a brick and mortar storefront. It's just the understanding how to create your digital storefront.
Yeah.
And understanding how to do it, what it costs, what you should pledge to it, and who you're going to have do it. And should you have people that you trust working with you on it, proven results. So that's the direction I think it's going. And I think that's why people are responding to that so much. And I know that sounds like a free commercial for me, and maybe it is, but
shameless plug. Why not?
Shameless plug. I think that's where it's going. I think people are going to be like working harder to get in front of those customers, and online's definitely a good way to do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. So, and all the hats that you wear, the podcaster, the connector, the media guy, the marketing, everything. What's your favorite part?
Oh, podcasting for sure.
Podcasting?
Absolutely. Hands down. People said, oh no, you got into RTO. And I'm like, RTO supports my addiction. Mm-hmm. My addiction's the podcast.
Yeah. Because I hear a lot of times, whenever I have a friend that just loves doing something, let's for example, baking cakes. Well, let's make a business baking cakes. Well, then now all of a sudden you're running a business and you bake cakes less. For me, it was the opposite. Building sheds is not my favorite thing to do in the world, but being in the office and talking to customers and then running the numbers and running the business, I love that.
I love networking. Anybody who's called and talked to me for any point of time on the phone knows that I will talk to you for an hour on the phone, even if we're not on this podcast.
Yeah.
Because I don't enjoy talking. I enjoy connectivity. I enjoy, I don't enjoy just hearing myself talk. I want to hear what the other person's got to say. I want to think about it, mull it over, overthink it for a while. Right. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And come to some conclusions on that. And to me, that's creativity. I want to use the creativity. The fun thing, Maya Angelou said, the good thing about creativity is the more you use of it, the more you have. Mm-hmm. So to me, the more creative I can be, the better. And like people can't put a limit on that. Mm-hmm. They can't limit you, and you can't limit them. Creativity is one of the greatest things. In the beginning, God created. It's the first thing we know about him. So I'm just a huge fan of it. And I think that conversation brings that out. It might be just one thing you say in this podcast, or it might be one thing someone says in a podcast I listen to, or an audiobook, or a music note, or a lyric, or whatever. But it's the one thing that might allow me to chew it over in my head going down the road on a 500-mile trip for 400 of those miles, and start exploring all those avenues. And it creates this whole dialogue inside of you that just manifests and spews out when you begin to talk to people that you didn't even know was in there. You're like, wow, this is great. I love talking to them. So the marketing exists for the purpose of funding my addiction, which is the podcast, communication and networking.
You're excellent at it though, as far as bringing information that's relevant and just relatable to me. It's
well, sometimes I want to go deeper, but I do fear the repercussions of saying something that would, frustrate a company or several companies or several listeners, but it's not my intent, and I got to trust God with that. I just got to give that to him. Yeah. Instead of trying to control it, I just have to give that and say, hope that you would do with it what you will. And if at any point I ever become that and I'm not useful to people through the content that we create, then maybe that's my cue that it's time to shut it down. As much as I enjoy it, maybe that's my time to shut it down. I'm hoping that's not for at least another 5 years. That's what we've got planned. So we'll go from there.
Very good. Yep.
I appreciate your kind words. It means a lot. It really does. All right. I guess we're gonna get off of here then.
All righty.
Appreciate having you on today.
Thank you, Shannon.
It's been great.
Yep, absolutely.
All right.
Hey, this is Mo Lunsford in sunny Union Grove, North Carolina, and we want to say thank you to all the guests and listeners.